Hey friends, in this video I want to explore some exciting options that we should be expecting from Canon here by the end of August. So there's going to be a couple of new lenses and maybe a new camera body. So let's kind of dive into it. The lenses, 85 f1.4 LIS, TSE 45mm f2.8L, and that TSE stands for tilt shift. So then there's going to be a couple more tilt shift lenses that could be really exciting. These haven't been updated in absolutely ages, so this could be a really big deal. The TSE 90mm f2.8L, and quite potentially the 135mm TSE L f2.8. All the tilt shift lenses will be sort of macro. There'll be a 1:2 macro ratio, and the 85 f1.4 LIS will have 4 stops of stabilization, and it's going to be styled much like the 35 f1.4. It's going to be priced between the f1.2 and the f1.8. As an owner of the f1.8, I think that stabilization is going to be a really critical factor in getting people to upgrade to that, and I really hope that they keep the price point reasonable on it, because that is the other really important bit. So the 85 f1.2 is running $2,000, and the f1.8 is running $430 or so. And so I think if they can bring it in at $1,200 to put it exactly on par in terms of price point with the Sigma, but adding IS, that could be a really big deal. And now those TSE lenses, those tilt shift lenses, those are also a really big deal, but they're a really big deal for a slightly different reason. They're a really big deal because there's a big conversation happening right now, as there always is whenever Canon releases a camera body, around, are you gonna switch? And a lot of people are saying, well, I'm locked into EF lenses, or what the upgrade is good enough. But once you start getting into these specialty lenses, like these tilt shift lenses, it becomes incredibly harder to really change what system you're with. You can always put one of these on an MC11 or a Metabones. That would be just fine. But you're gonna get the most out of them by putting them onto a Canon body. That's kind of the idea. And once you start buying into these specialty lenses, that idea kind of takes hold a little bit more, and you say, well, I can only shoot what I want to on a Canon body. There have been a lot of people talking about the 6D Mark II saying, well, what I shoot is birds and wildlife. What I shoot is astrophotography or whatever along those lines, and the 6D Mark II doesn't make sense for me because I have a 7D Mark II, and I really wanted to upgrade, but the 7D Mark II has more and better focus points at f8 even than the 5D Mark IV, and so the 6D Mark II obviously doesn't come anywhere close to that, so I'm just gonna have to stick with my crop body. And that's because they've bought into this, not only the Canon system, but also this particular type of photography so heavily that most of their kit reflects that, and so they're even more into that little box. And so photographers, landscape photographers that are shooting on tilt shift lenses already, these lenses are going to be a huge boost for, but it's also, these lenses are probably also going to keep a lot of photographers within the Canon ecosystem, because they're going to say, that's exactly what I wanted. And that's not to say anything negative about those photographers at all. It's just to say that using these specialty lenses to shore up, potentially fickle market segments, not again to cast any aspersions, but using specialty lenses to shore up market segments within their own market that could be potentially more willing to jump ship is a really strong way for Canon to keep sales going really well, and to keep engagement with their EF series of lenses and bodies really tight, so and consistent. So I think that these are going to be a really big deal. Now, the body that we should be expecting is the EOS M20, and that's probably going to come end of August, early September. So all these lenses are probably coming very soon, but this particular body, the EOS M20, it's probably going to have the exact same sensor that the 80D, the EOS M5, the EOS M6, the 77D, the T7i, the SL2 all have, and it'll be really interesting to see how Canon segments the M20, the M10 being the kind of entry-level mirrorless camera from Canon. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with that, because I feel like I say this with every single release of theirs, right? And so I could be totally off base, but this could be a really key point at which Canon starts to distinguish themselves on the mirrorless front. Now, what would that take? Assuming they're going to use that old sensor, makes sense from a profit perspective. If they can tweak it to give equivalent performance to the 80D in terms of image quality, maybe drop the autofocus points down to 9 or 11 like they did on the SL2, that is totally understandable. I think they need to keep the image quality really high, because a lot of the other mirrorless options on the market right now, like the 6000 series from Sony and the X-T20 and the X-T2 from Fuji, as well as the X Pro 2, those are all very high quality, very high image quality cameras. In order to keep pace with those, you gotta keep all of that sensor performance in there. But what they could start to do is add, a mic jack, headphone jack. That would be a really small thing. They could start to try to work with, higher frame rate 1080. I don't expect a 4K on that at all. But if they did, that would be huge, but probably not. They will have had time probably in terms of all this development to figure it out, because we've seen them figure it out with this EOS C200, with their cinema camera, the C200. So we know they can do it, maybe not full frame, but at a crop size, and this is going to be at a crop size. Now, kind of the next point, I don't think 4K is likely at all, but what some really cool features would be that would show that Canon's starting to pay attention. If you keep that image quality, you keep the 1080, just call it like that, but you introduce zebras and peaking, and you start building out the rest of the feature set. Maybe put a flat picture profile on there that's not a log profile, give you customizable picture profiles. I think that would be a huge turning point for them. If they could make an Alpha 6000, 6300 equivalent, but with a Canon mount, I think that would really start turning the tide. And Canon's mirrorless market has already increased by 70% over last year, according to their most recent numbers. So if they can really start hammering away at that segment like they have the entry-level DSLRs, I think they could really make some serious waves. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. I was really excited to bring this content to you, so I hope that it was entertaining at the very least for all of you. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.